Hello, I'm Paul. I am here today because I have some exciting news. I have been waiting for a long time to share this with you, and now I'm going to do it. I actually went public with this starting on March 10 of 2015. Here it is, Saturday, April 18, and I'm really excited because I get to present factual, undeniable information about my favorite musician of all time, Paul McCartney. Have I told you I like Paul McCartney? Well, when encountering information, it is necessary to use primary sources to distinguish fact from fiction. In this case, I refer to the man named Paul McCartney and the decades-long rumor of the Paul is dead story. To derive an informed, truthful answer, verifiable evidence that can be replicated is required. The document that I'm going to provide to you today, which I'll get to, reveals a truth, and from all known indications, is the first of its kind, responsibly produced and presented. Have I told you I like Paul McCartney? Okay, I often ask, have I told you I like Paul McCartney? Why? Paul McCartney, formerly of the Beatles, has inspired me more than any person in music. People of all social strata across the earth feel the same way. The singer Tony Bennett said it well. The whole world loves him. They don't like him, they love him. Consequently, I could tell a long story of how I've been a lifelong fan of the Beatles, etc. Instead, here is an overview of recent events that led to this historically significant writing. I have seen numerous famous personalities, but in 2005, the combined joy of all of them was paled when I saw Paul McCartney for the first time in concert. It was an unexpectedly elating transformation that began to unfold, and frankly, still is. The concert was one of the greatest days of my life. I immediately became a huge fan of Paul McCartney, and I remain so. Inevitably, I was soon reacquainted with a news story that I had heard years before yet had forgotten. Paul is dead. Also known as PID or PID. Those who question allege that Paul was fatally injured in an auto accident in November 1966, and that an equally talented look-alike, sometimes referred to as Faul, F-A-U-L, meaning fake Paul, took his place. There is also speculation that Paul was cloned, and that there are three of Paul McCartney. Some allege he is a reptilian. Cloned, killed, a reptilian. Often cited are backwards messages on records and other clues from Beatles and post-Beatles records as evidence for the PID story. Researchers also analyze audio and visual evidence. There are numerous books, magazines, magazine articles, archived newscasts, websites, newspaper articles, YouTube videos, and other exposés on the PID topic. A conservative estimate of Paul's fan base is 500 million to 1.5 billion. Could a false Pied Piper fool so many people? We all have been wrong before. So, endeavoring to be accurate, in 2006, I began initial research into the Paul is dead story. Research reveals much seemingly compelling, yet circumstantial evidence. Alas, at the risk of offending some researchers, no clue is as of yet conclusive. Interestingly, voice patterns like fingerprints are unique. Consequently, a voice analysis would need to be done comparing a song before and after the alleged death of Paul McCartney to reputably decide. Specifically, I thought of comparing the spoken count of 1, 2, 3, 4 on the track I Saw Her Standing There from the 1963 LP Please Please Me, with the same track from Back in the US from 2002. As a cross-reference, the songs I've Just Seen a Face from the Help LP 1965 and the Wings Over America LP 1976 could be used to solidify the evidence. Pleased with my level of reasoning, I continue to enjoy the diverse music from Paul's vast catalog and merrily went on with life. Still, I lacked proof about the PID story and was unsure how to obtain it. Then, 8 years later, two events happened. First, in May 2014, I learned of audio-visual forensics specialists who examined the audio tape released of missing Malaysian Flight 370. Summarizing, the specialists said the recording appeared to have been edited and, like other stories in the news, was not what the government claimed. Logically, the same kind of expertise would be needed to determine if the Paul McCartney I thought I knew was Sir Paul. Second, within 3 months, I found a person who appreciated the implications of what I sought and was willing to help. Enter Ed Primeau of Primeau Forensics. Ed is an audio-video forensics expert and registered investigator. He's from Rochester Hills, Michigan. Ed has over 30 years of experience with a variety of cases. Like many of us, Ed also has an appreciation of the Beatles and Paul McCartney. Ed generously gave of his time during travels and endured illness to investigate the PID story. His investigation now concluded, Ed and I publicly share his report's results. Sparing you the melodrama? And to the point, Paul McCartney is Sir Paul McCartney. A draft of the report appears on the link provided in this video's description. If, after reading, someone wants to cast aspersions or reject this information, fine. Please present a better investigative case. By the way, it was only after Ed agreed to accept this case that I learned he was one of the audio forensic specialists who made public his findings about Malaysian Flight 370. Sometimes it really is a small world. So why is it that besides verbal denials, neither Paul nor the Beatles worked to end the Paul is dead rumor? Granted, they were not obliged to. At the same time, since all you need is love, they could have lovingly ended the PID story decades ago, and doing so any remaining speculation. Whatever the reason, the story found me, and I found Ed. Consequently, the place in history and reward Ed and I merit is that a truth in the Paul is dead story is now known. I am humbly, yet happily, responsible for my part in producing the first publicly conclusive, documented evidence that Paul McCartney is Sir Paul McCartney. Ed's investigation answered my question. All known integrity issues are satisfied. Thus, on my behalf, appreciative Paul fans, the Beatles fans, and all of humanity, I extend deepest gratitude to Mr. Ed Primeau. But there still remains, why do people question? People question the PID story because there is reason. I do not debate or judge PID researchers. The question offered here is, what will those who question accept as proof that Paul is not dead? The evidence presented here is irrefutable and can be reproduced. If not, it is now time for investigators to finalize their Paul is dead proof. Otherwise, resourceful energies can be used to research the myriad of concerns to which sisters and brothers need our help. I am sure Sir Paul McCartney would agree. And another question that has to be asked is, why Paul? Honestly, I don't know. If it helps, as I have often said, don't be perfect, be perfectly human. Not all Paul touches turns to gold. I do not like every song he has ever made, and I question some of his associations, political statements, and other judgments. Such considerations do not imply that Paul is a bad person. Rather, there was a question there was a question requiring an answer. I prefer that Paul had no such issue. And I hope that everyone can know the excitement of the music Paul makes. The experience is unlike anything I have ever known. It is the best kind of fun to be a fan of Paul McCartney. Paul is alive. So, to conclude, a ceremonious formal introduction is in order. Sir Paul McCartney is a musician, songwriter, producer, author, artist, filmmaker, poet, celebrity, dad, businessman, entrepreneur, philanthropist, vegetarian, world backwards traveler, that's an allusion to a song by the way, humanitarian, and an ambassador of goodwill. A giant star among stars, Paul is one of the greatest musical pioneers in world history. Constantly innovative, receiving accolades and honors along the way, including knighthood, Macca, as he is often known, came from humble beginnings, made good, has composed a soundtrack for our lives, and, as multitudes can attest, adds delight to our world. According to the Guinness Book of World Records, the 1997 edition, Paul was part of the world's most successful group, the Beatles. There are more world records by Paul and them than Guinness can count. Paul continues with more impressive statistics such as most records sold, most number one hits, which he shares with John Lennon, most covered song, Yesterday, the largest paid audience for a solo concert, which was estimated to be over 180,000 people in Brazil in 1990, and is the music world's first billionaire. Paul is also famous for singing, and in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. I pray that such is true for Paul, and that he is one of the most blessed people to ever live. Paul is not bigger than God. Oh, darn. Paul, take two. Paul is not God and is not bigger than Jesus. He does not have to be. He seems happiest when making records. All of his life, even amidst turmoil, Paul has brought unprecedented gladness to the world. For all he has given, he deserves to be loved and happy. So come on, people. Let me introduce to you the act you've known for all these years, Sir Paul McCartney. I began with a question and end with one. Among those currently living, who is the most loved person on the planet? Polls vary. None use the measure I seek. Undaunted, since 2007, I have been confident I found the answer. In May 2013, I was affirmed with this newspaper quote. The person playing in Texas named Paul McCartney is the most famous human being on planet Earth. There is no one bigger than Paul McCartney. That is from the San Antonio Express News, Sunday, May 19, 2013, page J7. Thank you for watching. Smile away.